Hey, Blair Packham here from SongStudio. Don't forget to like this video, share it with songwriter friends or people you think might be interested, or subscribe. Check out songstudio.ca for more information.
Here's another peek at what we did at SongStudio Online last August. Hope you enjoy.
Yeah. Well, I'll read it aloud anyway, just to enter it into the record. I was wondering if you have any advice for someone who already has a big social media following, but not for music. Like, how would you recommend handling the transition into music when there's a risk of losing people by changing your brand?
I don't know if there's such a risk, quite frankly. I mean, if you've already got a great following, that's amazing. I would slowly, I guess the first question that I have back would be, are you going to change the name? When you say the brand, do you mean the name of the site or the whatever the tag is, and so, okay. So, I don't think that's a huge transition. I think if you slowly introduce the music, whether that's through posting visuals or doing a lot. Maybe one of the things to do is start with live stream concerts or like short form concerts. That way you're introducing the new thing without actually interrupting your regular flow. So, I don't know if you're doing regular live things now, then in case then you would be interrupting the live flow with something new if you start performing. But if you're not doing live, like broadcasts, then start with that and don't kill people with a concert, but do announce, hey, on Friday at 7 p.m. or whatever, I'll be doing a live performance, or maybe it's more fun just to surprise people and see. And I think if you integrate it slowly into what you're doing, you're going to start getting feedback. Everybody's not going to run away, but you're going to start getting feedback. And I would assume that people are going to actually act positively to that, and not knowing what else you're doing right now. If you're doing, comedy skits or something, I would still continue to do the comedy skits, because if you've built a big following, whatever you've been doing to this point to get to where you are now, I would still throw some of that in. And that's not a bad thing. It doesn't detract from your music. It just shows that you're multi-talented and you have many things you can do to entertain people.
I think that's really good advice. I think the world we live in now is very accepting of people doing different things. You don't want to confuse people, because the world we're living in now can be hyper busy, and it's hard to so you may alienate some people. But I think that's really good advice. I think just doing what you do and running with it makes sense.
You'll probably get more people than you will alienate. Unless some of your fans right now are music haters, I can't imagine anyone's gonna be like, oh God, I got to stop following. You're losing people every day anyway. We all lose people on our social media. They were never that probably, committed anyway. So
yeah, that makes sense. Back when you were working at Universal, what were you looking for? You were director of A&R. What were you looking for in acts at the time, and how has that changed for what are the, not just the musical things, but the business things? Because I would think now you would be entering into more of a partnership because of the independent nature of your label, as opposed to Universal, a large corporation.
Yeah, on one hand, the things that I've looked for have always pretty much been the same. It's something unique about the artist, something that makes them stand out. That could be anything, really. It could be the way they look, the way they sing, the way they perform live, something really unique and original about the band. You absolutely need that. And, great songs. Songs that stand out. And, people can, you can play a bunch. If you're crappy live, you can play a bunch of shows and get better live. If you're a mediocre songwriter, you can probably get some co-writes in there. And, I've never been a big fan of other people's songs. In other words, any of the bands I've worked with usually have either written their own songs or co-written, right, which is, I'm always a big proponent of.
Yeah.
I just never been a big fan of signing acts that just don't write their own songs. But yeah, I think the key is something original about the band, something unique about the band, and great songs. And everything else can kind of, you can kind of fix everything else, better dress them up if they're terrible dressers. And, and obviously the third thing would be they have to be driven. They have to, they have to work hard, because as I've discovered the last 20 plus years or so, if bands aren't working harder than I am as their manager, it's never going to happen.
That's a huge point, and one that can't be overemphasized. You can't expect your manager to work at it more than you do, or your label. You can't.
So many artists, I've worked with, at least anyway, not so many, but a number of them over the years. You do the deal, and it's like they're drinking beer in the backyard. Well, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is where you actually start working harder, not where you just are like, all right, well, Brian's going to take care of everything. We're good.
That was the case. I'll confess something here. That was the case with my band in the 80s. Once we got signed, it was we breathed a sigh of relief, because we thought, okay, now somebody else will take care of some stuff. Because at that point, we'd been together for 6.5 years doing absolutely everything. Yeah. And we felt like, okay, now the label can take over. And they really wanted to, because in those days, there was a tendency for a label to want to be more Svengali-like and control the image and the career of the band. And, thankfully, that's mostly gone away now.
One of the things about that, too, is, the big difference between my career at a major label and the career of my own was, we could throw a bag of money at something and kind of make it work, like even if it, you through extensive advertising or radio buys or whatever, you could make anybody have a hit, really,
Right. Or maybe if not a genuine hit, at least a turntable hit.
Exactly.
Like meaning a song that gets played on the radio, even if it doesn't sell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
Now that's pretty, it's hard to get great acts on the radio now.
Yeah, it's true. Radio is not the thing it was anyway, which is, I guess, a good thing in that way. Do you know David Steinberg, the entertainment lawyer? Yeah. So David and I are, lifelong friends, and he was in the Jitters with me. He's a terrific drummer, but he represents, among other people, he represents Rush, and he represents Randy Bachman and a whole bunch of other people. And he said to me fairly recently, he said, you and I in the Jitters and the other various bands we were in, we were never going to make it big time, because we didn't have that thing. He said, I sit across from Randy Bachman, who's in his 70s, and he's still got this intensity, this ambition. He said it's nuts, because it's kind of disconcerting to sit across a table from, Randy's staring at him and saying, can we make this happen? We really need to make this happen. And Randy's in his 70s. Do you really need to make it happen? But he's driven. And I really think that you have to have that, whether you're going to be though people always say, I just want to be a songwriter, using the word just as if, because it's going to be easier to just be a songwriter. It's not. I want to be a songwriter for other people. That's just as hard as being an artist. But regardless, you have to be driven and focused. And I would think as a smaller label and a manager, those are the people you're looking for. You're looking for partners.
Yeah. And, something else you said about, just that thing, like sitting across from a guy like, Randy or Burton, or really, quite frankly, a lot of acts that are of that level of success. And I remember, one of the last things that I tried to sign at Universal, well, without going into a long version of the story, I'll try and do the short version of the story. But a friend of mine kept pushing this young girl. She was about 12 or 13 at the time, on me, saying, she's going to be a star, going to be a star. And he brought me a couple of demos, and I was like, yeah, it's good, but it's not killer. And he finally brought her down to Toronto to meet me. And that young girl was Avril Lavigne. And the strange thing was, I was completely taken by her, not in a creepy way, like purely in a, I couldn't explain it to you. But when I met her, we clicked, first of all, like just on the same wavelength. And there was I just was like, this girl's a star. Like, I just knew it. And then, I went down to Napanee and I saw her, perform in her basement. And, she was doing country at that time, not pop. But, we sort of she used to send me all these cute letters, and I would send her music. And, when she was kind of formulating into what she was hoping to be. And that was one of the reasons I left Universal, actually, was that, I tried to sign her, and they just wouldn't bite.
Wow.
And, the rest is history, if you will. But that stands out among other acts that I've either worked with or know or have met or whatever. It's just, that's an intangible thing that not all successful acts have it, but it's something that, you do encounter, and it's very strong. It's just very hard to explain.
I would wager that the people whose Andy Warhol portraits you have behind you, David Bowie and Marilyn Monroe, both had it, enormously.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, and I don't think it's anything you can develop, or maybe it is. I don't know, but they have.
I don't think it is. I think it's something that it's just so intangible. Even speaking about it, it's sort of like they just have something. They have a charisma or something.
Yeah, they have whatever it is. Coraline, one of our participants, asks, "Do you only work with bands?"
Nope, bands, artists,
individuals.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And what does a label do these days? A smaller label like yours, because we're not selling physical copies of music generally. I mean, there's vinyl and so forth, but it's not the main thrust necessarily, or is it?
I mean, I think everybody's going to give you a different answer on this, or at least a variation of an answer. I mean, for us, physical is still a really big. I think we're probably one of the few labels that does as much physical, maybe except for like jazz labels or something like that. But our physical business is still really good. I mean,
wow.
With a combination of like offstage, when that's a possibility, obviously.
Yeah.
We really developed our mail order really strong during COVID. Amazon is a good one for us. And we still have a physical distributor, not only in Canada, but for the rest of the world. So, we ship product that goes away and never comes back, and we're really happy that it never comes back. And I would venture to say that in some respects, our physical business is probably as strong, if not stronger, than our streaming business.
That's amazing. So does that mean, though, that that must come into consideration then when you're looking at signing somebody? Are they going to have good physical sales? Because if that's a big portion of what you do.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, I guess I don't ever really truly make that part of the checklist, but I mean, I think most of the acts that we are gravitate towards, I have two labels. I have one that's sort of like country roots and Americana, and then sort of a rock pop alternative label. So, I have obviously acts in both genres, and generally, most of the acts we have, sell physical pretty strongly,
Thanks for taking a glimpse with us inside the SongStudio workshop from last August. Stay tuned for more.